First, let me start by saying my heart goes out to everybody affected in Minnesota by the tragic events that took place yesterday. I have a very unique perspective, and this one hits home to me because when I got into the armed security industry, the Buffalo shooting had just happened and the Uvalde shooting had just happened. And I distinctly remember going to my therapist's office and breaking down inside because I couldn't understand why this would happen. And then the reality hit me that I am going to be armed security and I will be the person in that position. That will finally be me. Another early catalyst was the Pulse shooting that just happened here in Orlando, which has some controversy around it now. I was fortunate enough to be able to go back and be a part of the security detail that was around the memorial of the Pulse shooting, and when people were going back to remember their loved ones and to pay homage to them and go back inside the building after almost 10 years, I got to be a part of the team that was there to protect individuals and just be a watchful eye while they got to go and remember their loved ones. And it gave me a unique perspective. I've been in the industry, armed security now, for 3 years. I've been teaching for 5. And to go back to Pulse and be able to provide that presence that I couldn't provide initially, it gave me a lot of solace because it was just like a full circle moment. And so I want to now take time to, one, I'll give you more of my background in terms of how I've operated in the industry, things I've done in the industry, and how my team and teams I've been a part of have stopped these events from happening because we've seen them. And one of my goals of getting in was when Pulse happened, I was like, I don't care if you're LGBTQ, I don't care what you are. No one deserves to just come and take your life because they don't want to live their life. That is not something, and if somebody wants to do that, put me out front and I will gladly stand in front of it and fight until the very end, until I can't fight anymore or until I win. I wanted to do that. I was younger, so the moment I got a chance to get in the industry, I did. And then, like I just said, Uvalde and the Buffalo shooting happened and the reality became more. And before I was as trained up as I am now, it hit me of I have to obsess. I want to go home at the end of the day, but I also want to make sure these people go home. I want to make sure whoever I'm working with goes home. And if I fail and I don't neutralize the threat that is active, how do I live with myself after that? And the security officer that was at Pulse that night, I believe he pulled out of the industry. I was talking to an officer that was kind of newer to the force at the time, and he was there and witnessed it. That security individual ended up pulling out of the industry because to live with the idea and the understanding that he couldn't fully protect all those people, and 49 people died from that incident, that's a lot to live with, and that's not something I wanted. So I obsessed over learning how to draw from out of the waistband, learning the tactics, learning cover, learning everything that I need to be the highest level operator at this job. And it did me well because we were able to stop a lot of those. So I got to fulfill that desire to prevent mass shootings from happening. Now, there's a difference, and I think we have to take the political side off. I don't care if you're pro gun. I don't believe if you think gun rights should never be infringed based off the verbiage of the Second Amendment. We all can agree that kids dying in a school is not, it's not okay. It's not okay in any way. I'm not here to glorify guns. I'm not here to say the good guy with the gun is what needs to be more. I'm here to find whatever practical solution that everybody is okay with to prevent these from happening, because I don't care if the person goes into the school with a knife like they did in Manchester or in the UK last year. I believe it was Manchester. If anybody's going in to kill kids, that has to be stopped. That has to be prevented at all cost. And we always want to understand the why, but there's truly no good reason a person could ever give us. I think the manifesto of this person has been released now, and when you read it, ask yourself, was there anything they could have listed in there that would have justified it? Was there any reason they would have given that would have been like, oh, I understand it now, there's nothing they could have said. So the why that our emotions naturally want to feel, there's nothing that could satisfy that. But there is a why in terms of why they did this and how their mental state happened. And many have watched Criminal Minds before. And while that is a TV show, there are basic fundamental things that they're using in there, since they are mimicking a real life agency, I would assume, in terms of how these things happen and the why of the person that commits this act. And the first why that we have to understand is the copycat effect. I hate the fact that we glorify serial killers. There's documentaries about Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, and all these other serial killers and murder mystery things that they can pervert the brain in terms of individuals that identify with that type of individual, somebody that is going through maybe something similar. There's always subgroups in schools. There's the popular kids, there's the athletes, there's the band kids like I was, there's the robotics kids, the geeks, if you will, which make the most money as of now. There's all these different perspectives of it, and we have to understand how each context of life plays out and what triggers a person. And so one is the copycat effect I was saying, where we've seen these happen so many times now, and we understand what the fallout is going to be. We understand exactly how it's going to play out. In 3 weeks, it might not even be in the news cycle anymore. We'll be on to something completely different. But the pain we feel right now, the pain that Minnesota will continuously feel, is forever. Anytime I ride by the Pulse Memorial, I get chills because I remember it happening. I remember how I felt. I remember what I wanted to do. And you just can't help but be reminded that this event happened here. This is a place where a tragedy took place, and there's just nothing that changes that reality once it's done. And this is what they want. This is what they know will happen. And I don't think we should ever glorify. So I won't put the person's picture up. I won't say their name. I'll just refer to them as a person or a suspect. I don't believe in glorifying them in any way. I'm not going to put their manifesto up here. You'll have to find that one. I'm not even going to read it right now, just because once I did read it last night, like I said, there was nothing that it gave me. If anything, I read it and was more confused of why you would commit the act, because there's nothing that you could have put in there that would have satisfied the reasoning for me. So the copycat effect is one that definitely takes place. The other one is the will to live of the person. These people usually, they are suicidal to some degree, which is usually why we see them end up taking their own life in the end, because they didn't want to live in the first place. For them to then go and take more life with them, again, they just want to cause as much pain on everybody else as they feel internally themselves. And this individual was, after reading it, they were extremely self-aware. They were emotionally aware. They knew how they felt. They knew the thoughts that were in their head. They knew these things because they wrote them out. They knew how their family would be affected. They knew how the town would be affected. They knew these things already. So yes, they're going through a mental health crisis, but they're still very aware as a person. And in terms of the gun debate of, do we add mental health check-ins for people that own guns? I wouldn't be against it if there could be a practical way that we can guarantee it's not abused, where military members that have been trained up with firearms, that we have no idea when they're going to have a stressor, which again, if we go back to the BAU, we don't know when the stressor of a mass shooter that is going to do this type of event is going to happen versus the events that I dealt with, which are typically street issues, gang issues. They're two very different types of stressors that trigger the event. And when there's a mass shooter like this, you don't know when the stressor happened versus when the stressor happened leading up to when the event was enacted. That could be a very short time. It could be a very long time. It's very hard to determine. So the mental health check, is it a standardized test? Is it a 50-question test that you have to take once a quarter? How many questions are there? And then at what can a person understand how to answer these questions to then bypass it? I took a psych eval for a government agency just a couple months ago, and it's a 500 question test. There's different variations that each of us are getting, but when you read the questions, you can determine which ones are going to red flag you more than others. So will a person be cognizant enough? Like I said, this person is emotionally aware enough to know that these thoughts are bad. This is how they feel. This is the trauma that's going to be caused by the event. Could that person still pass a mental health check? Can they put on a face enough to pass that check and then still go and act the violence? Will the mental health check stop the event from ever happening again? I can't guarantee that. Even if it's not with a gun, if it's with a knife, if it's with a car, if it's with any mechanism that is going to cause great bodily harm in mass numbers, can we 100% stop the event with the mental health checks inside of it? No, I don't personally believe so. I'm not against it. I just don't think it would stop an event from ever happening again. Do we ban all guns? If we were to take away every gun store today and say, all right, executive order, all gun shops are now shut down. You cannot buy another gun. Well, what about the guns inside of the house? I think it was MSNBC. They had a panel talking about it with a guy that had been studying gun violence like this for the past 10 years. He mentioned that the new gun owner is the hardest one to get in. A lot of my clients are new gun owners. Well, I haven't already mentioned, I teach the CCW class. I teach private weapons handling. I've been teaching for 5 years. I've been operating in private security for 3. I have been the filter of new gun owners that are coming in and helping them become educated. If you're watching this video and you go back and watch my content over the last 5 years, I've made hundreds of videos on TikTok, Instagram, whatever platform about gun education, at least here in Florida, and now I'm expanding to the rest of the country. So I've seen a lot of new gun owners. Those aren't usually the people you have to worry about. The new gun owner isn't really the person you have to worry about. because, again, we believe in police having firearms, and the argument is never that we take firearms away from police officers because they have to go and deal with the criminals. Well, before the person commits the criminal act, if they have, in this situation, the person had no criminal background, before they go and commit the criminal act, how do we know they're not going to, how does the civilian protect themselves against the criminal act that that individual might perpetrate against them while police is not in that presence? So we don't talk about taking guns away from police officers, so we can't really talk about taking them away from civilians as much. But again, if we were to take all the guns away from the gun stores, shut down the gun stores, and say every person give up your guns, how do you do that without losing life? Are we now going to send officers into people's houses with guns to take away the guns? So you need guns in order to get rid of the guns. We have so many guns in the country that to practically restrict guns just doesn't quite work. We could put assault weapon bans in. They can use a handgun. You'll hear the buzz term, and I won't call it a buzz term, semi-automatic weapons. It becomes a buzz term when they say fully semi-automatic, which just means it's fully only one time you pull the trigger, one round comes out. It's fully that. So you'd be better off just saying semi-automatic. The same thing that a rifle can do, a pistol can do. The rounds are different, but I don't think the rounds quite matter. They both create a large amount of damage. They both are extremely devastating once it hits the human body. So whether it is a pistol and they have 10 rounds and they have 5 10-round magazines, or they have an AR with 5 30-round magazines, either way they have ammunition that will cause great bodily harm to the individual. So whether it's an assault weapons ban, whether you limit the pistols, that doesn't solve the root cause of will that stop an individual from going into a school and killing kids on any level. I'd say no, because again, in Manchester last year, saw an individual go into a school and stab a bunch of kids. I forget how many died. I'll clip the video here, but it doesn't stop the event. The trauma that the person wants to enact on the public is their goal, so they will do it by any means necessary. Some ways that we stopped it in terms of how my team used to operate is we had the most aggressive tactics in our sector. When situations were happening where guns were pulled out and potential danger and great bodily harm was going to be committed, we made it a point to close the distance, where I would see other security agencies, they would keep distance, take cover at a distance, and keep focus in that area. We made it a point to move closer to them, as close as we can. Sometimes we'd get within arm's reach of them, because it's like, you're going to do this with me right here in front of you. You're not going to do it with me 10 feet, 20 feet away. You're going to do it with me 5 feet away from you. You got one, I got one. Let's see what goes down from this point. And almost, I'd say 100% of the time, we stopped all the shootings in our sector, and on our contract, we stopped all of them from happening. We never had somebody get shot by somebody else that was not a member of our team while we were operational in that aspect on that scene. But again, going back to when I got inside of security, I trained so hard, and I would instill my thought process in the other guys. They would instill their thought process inside of me. And we made it a point that this is what we're going to do. We're not going to let this happen. We're going to do everything we can to guarantee this doesn't happen. We're going to work through scenarios. We're going to talk through scenarios. We're going to brainstorm it all the time. Is the argument of the good guy with the gun is going to stop the bad guy with the gun. That's just not true. The good guy with the gun has to have a plan. If they just, and this is where my argument comes into play, where people that just think that the Second Amendment is absolute, as the verbiage is in states, and that all people should just be allowed to carry, that thing is not an accessory on your hip, man. It's not an accessory that you just carry around because it looks cool and you think that you're going to be a movie. If you're not prepared to deal with that situation, if you haven't truly thought through and trained for that situation, you're not going to make it. In this aspect right here, just a qualifying question. If somebody's 7 yards away, how fast can they close 7 yards and get to you? How long does it take a person to run 40 yards? Now cut that down to 7 yards. That's where most self-defense situations happen. If you haven't gone through these type of thought process to understand the why of everything you have to do with that gun, you're not prepared just because you're a good guy with a gun. Now, you can go tit for tat of people with guns that have stopped shootings and people with guns that have not stopped shootings. You can go to the Detroit shooting, the stopped event in Detroit on June 23rd in Detroit, where individual tried to come and shoot up a church with an AR-15. There was an individual outside. There's individuals outside that stopped him. Then there was an individual that heard gunshots going on, and he went out there and neutralized the individual. We can see events like this where it happens and the event was stopped. And then we can see events like Uvalde where you have SWAT outside and they have not run into that building to stop that. How much did that SWAT team train? People glorify military police more than they should sometimes when it's like, do they train? Are they prepared to deal with this situation when it comes up? Will they do everything that they can do? Have they been given every tool? Have they gone to all the classes that the agency can afford to prevent this? I think Orange County is doing a pretty good job about simulating mass shootings and doing mass shooting trainings at different high schools here in the county. We see it all the time. If you look at the Orange County Sheriff's Instagram page, even OPD's page, they train for these situations all the time. In Florida, we have different laws now, especially after the Parkland shooting, where more schools have to have armed security there, or at least a resource officer there. And I think private schools, there's some stipulation that they need to have security presence there as well. Haven't had one in a while, but not to say that one can't happen, but they do a pretty good job here. You just never know when it's going to happen. Like, it has more gun deaths than Minnesota has. Minnesota is ranked number 8 for fewest gun deaths in the country. So they're top 10 of low gun deaths in their country, even with there being looser gun laws. And I believe they're a blue state. I could be wrong, but I do believe Minnesota is a blue state. And again, they have some of the least gun violence in the country there, with open carry laws, concealed carry laws, and permits. They have a lot of the things that red states like to brag about. They have that in Minnesota. There's background checks. There's red flag laws now. There's all the things. So what can we do to practically stop this? I wish in the big beautiful bill that there was a provision in there that allocated more funds to schools to be able to increase their budget for security, whether it is armed security, whether it is security surveillance. And on this topic, I've heard the argument of, we don't want our schools to be more militarized. We don't want more guns at the schools. How do we know the security guard isn't going to off one of the kids? How do we know that the teachers, if they're allowed to carry, they aren't going to off one of the kids? If I work backwards in that sentence, and all the school shootings that we've seen, a teacher has not been the perpetrator. Statistically, since Columbine, there has not been a teacher that has gone inside of the school that they work at to commit a mass shooting. Never happened. There are events where a teacher has potentially harmed one student. In terms of a mass scale like we see here, it hasn't happened. And a teacher is usually 21 plus. They meet the minimum requirements federally to get a handgun. There's likely teachers, I know for sure there are teachers that do carry guns in their personal life. The teacher has the complete ability to go to a gun store without a permit, if the state allows it, buy a gun, do the waiting period, and then come back to the school and commit whatever act. They have that ability, but they never do it. And the reason they never do it is because they have a will to live. They have a purpose for living, which is to teach those kids. That is their purpose for living. That is what they wake up every day to go do. That is literally their profession. It's statistically never seen. And while we're afraid about the unknown, if we look at the data, teachers have never committed a mass act of violence like this. There has not been a teacher. When they do have the capabilities to do so, they have access to the school. They have keys to get into the school. Most schools, teachers aren't getting patted down for guns. So, they wanted to, they could, but it has never happened when they have the full capabilities to do so. So I think allowing teachers to carry if they are willing to do so, not forced, but if they're willing to do so, should be allowed. If you are a teacher and you're like, I don't trust myself with a gun, it's not your worry. It's not something you should have to do. I don't want to force that choice on you. I don't want to put you in that mindset to do that. But if the teacher across the hall lives a different lifestyle than you personally, and it is something they believe in, you're uncomfortable, so that person should not be able to do it. When they are comfortable doing it, they'd be willing to. Let the person that is willing to serve and protect. You want the police to serve and protect, we should allow civilians to serve and protect just as well, because the police have to get there. Like all the situations that we were in, but the police never are the ones that stopped it. They would show up afterwards and we'd give them the report of what happened. They have to get to us. They're on whatever call, dealing with whatever situation they got going on. They have to get to us. Same deal in the schools. I think the best response time was 6 minutes that the situation was stopped, but people still died in those 6 minutes. 6 minutes is a long time for a gunfight. If you're, most of you might not be aware, 6 minutes is a long gunfight. That's a lot of lead flying around. That's a lot of potential life that is lost in 6 minutes. I think teachers should be allowed to carry. We talk about armed security presence, and I think a lot of times people go tactical. They want the security that has the out of the waistband holster, the security setup that you typically be running. That's not always necessary. You can increase the security presence at a school in a plain clothes type of deal. And what I mean by that is I've done a lot of workplace violence jobs recently. I've done a lot of workplace violence jobs as of recent, and in those jobs, I'm never in a full tack uniform. I'm in plain clothes. I essentially just look like anybody else that's working in the office. If we're talking schools, you have administrators that are business professional, business casual. Can we have two dedicated administrators that, maybe they're not physical administrators, they're just separate people, contractors that are in plain clothes that walk around the school, patrol the school perimeter, interior for threats like this when they happen, if they happen. You don't have to be the super tacked out GI Joe. You can be in plain clothes, a suit, button down shirt, business casual, polo, jeans. You can do it in a way that you don't make it overtly seen and make it uncomfortable and make the school feel like a militarized zone. You can do it in a way where you don't have that. It just everything looks as normal as possible. They're having these individuals at every game. A lot of times for after school events, you can get police officers there, especially when there's football games. But for the volleyball games, the basketball games, the other sports that are a little bit more minor and not as popular as football, but still have after school activity there, having dedicated professionals in those circumstances where, again, they're in plain clothes, they're sitting in the bleachers, they're sitting near the door, they're at the front of the door, wherever they have to be tactically to make the best decision and prevent the tragedy from happening. That can be done in plain clothes. I can look just like you and successfully do the job. Florida's a concealed carry state, so you never know who's carrying around you anyway. It can be something similar to that. And again, this person should go through extensive training, different levels, background checks, psyche evals, the whole shebang, like put them through it. But if the person wants to serve and protect, allow them to serve and protect. This would be a way to help fund small business and lower unemployment rate, as well as help military veterans that need a purpose again. Their purpose was to serve and protect, and their time in the military is done. And they learn skills that don't always translate to the civilian life in terms of what they had to do every day and what gave them purpose, and what gave them purpose. We can limit their unemployment rate by allowing them to do so and giving them a pathway. So again, this is why, I don't think we can trust Republicans. We can't trust Democrats to fix this issue. With the Department of Education being dismantled, a lot of it, the rights are going to be given back to the states. Are states going to do it? This is something a federal budget should be allocated to increase schools' security presence. Give schools more money to be able to implement different security systems. If we don't want physical people there, can we implement security AI systems where if a firearm is detected on property? I was just talking to a guy that owns an agency, and one of his main things is he does security cameras as well as physical security. And I was like, hey man, I just looked up some things to see if there are AI security systems out there that could detect when a gun is being held or detect that is a gun a person is holding. There are companies out there that are doing it. I did not know until literally I had to look it up, but it hasn't been a prominent thing talked about. That's one that we can increase the budget to put those inside of schools. He was telling me that there are entry and gateway monitoring systems where if a person breaches the gateway at this time or this entryway, the detection is made, it's notified to somebody, and then boom, a response can be made. Implementing those inside of schools, allocating more money to schools to be able to implement these type of things. These are practical things where, again, if we don't want armed individuals, we can have these. But again, on the reversal, understand that there is the time that the police have to get there. So the AI system detects that the person has a firearm, but the person still has the opportunity, ability to go and put life in jeopardy, which justify using deadly force. Ability, opportunity, and jeopardy are usually the three criteria. Their intent in terms of walking into a school with a weapon, we can understand the intent from that point forward. So security systems that implement this, I'd be for. Again, I'd be for the mental health checks, but a 500 question psyche eval, if you take this thing once a quarter, do you get to a point where you know how to beat it or you know how to beat the system? Like the psyche eval and the mental health check, can it be beat? Whether I'm talking to a physical person or whether I am talking, you have to take a physical multi-question test. Can that system be beat where a person that is mentally ill still can get the firearm or still can, bypass the check and then still go and commit this act of violence? That's why I don't necessarily think that the mental health check, the background checks, you can incorporate mental health checks into them. But again, how do you determine if you're innocent until proven guilty? Do these systems then make you guilty until you're proven innocent? So if you've never done this, like the individual doesn't have a criminal background, how do you stop somebody that has never had a criminal background? If they don't verbalize these thoughts, which a lot of times they won't because these thoughts are taboo. Like I said, if you read this person's manifesto, they're extremely emotionally aware. They know how they feel inside. They know the thoughts they're having. They know they're not good thoughts. But they still want to enact this act because they know what it's going to do to the public. They know the trauma and turmoil it's going to enact on the public, and that's what they want in the end. So how do you stop the person that is not on the radar and that has never been on the radar from doing it? Because a lot of times these people aren't on the radar. You have some. There was the kid recently where I forgot what state it was in, but already been one incident, and then he eventually got the gun and went to commit another incident. Maybe it was at FSU. I think it was at a high school actually. I can't remember it, but if they've never been on the radar, how do you prevent them? And if they are on the radar, what are steps that we can proactively take to prevent it from happening without infringing on rights? Because again, the Second Amendment is a right in the Constitution, and we're seeing the constitutional crisis and fall that we're in with the current administration looking to take away the 14th Amendment, looking to get rid of due process, all these things. How do we stop ourselves from losing every single right? Again, if we send police to people's doors to take all the guns back, do police officers end up losing their lives because they have to go into people's houses and take guns? So we're saying we're going to suspend the Fourth Amendment for how long? And then if we suspend the Fourth Amendment in this instance, how does it not get suspended in other instances later on that can be used for political prosecution or, whatever's happening? How do we stop the slippery slope but keep everybody safe at the same time? Again, I wish there was a larger budget for schools to be allocated to hire professionals that are committed to it. Those professionals need to, if you're a professional that does this like I do, you need to be committed to training your skills, getting to the range, going through the scenarios. You're never good enough. You're never good enough, because if you fail to do your job in that moment, this is the fallout. This is what happens. Whether you're there or whether you're not there, this is the fallout. If you're there and you don't do the job, you have to live with that. If you're not there, this is what we have to do. And I could hit up 100. I know 100 people right now that would gladly sign up to go and work at a school every day in this role. I know 100 people right now, easily. I have a network of over 1,000 different security officers that would easily take this job every day of the year. They take this job multiple times a day. So if we have people that are willing to actually be that buffer, why do we not allow them? And this is why I say we can't trust Republicans or the Democrats on it, because neither one of them are giving us practical solutions. They're talking political talking points around gun control. Again, this is not a gun control video. This is a practical solution of what we can do. If you're a private institution, if you're a private business, security is something you have to think about. And being an agency owner, I see it all the time where I had a contract where it was high risk. There are people that have died in the parking lot. There are shootings that have died in this parking lot already. And they want me to supply them with 2 armed guards. 2 people for a situation where it's like, you look at the building, literally, it's like, I look at the pole right here, I can see bullet impacts. I look at a statue here and I can see a piece of the statue missing because a bullet impacted right there. And they let me know, I'm like, people were shooting from this way. The door is behind me. So there was a gun that got inside, and then they start shooting outside. As private business owners and CEOs, you have to allocate in your budget to increase your security. At the places where I go and do workplace violence, you have security, but they have the cheapest security there. And it's not until, and for them, I understand it in some of these instances where, it's not an issue for your bottom line until it is an issue, until there is a threat against the company. Now you do want to hire, if that's the case, sure. But for schools and especially for churches, churches especially, like, religious persecution has been a thing for thousands of years. People have been dying for their religion for thousands of years because they believe in this over that. Like, people have been getting persecuted over this since forever. So we have to understand that you have to fortify yourself. You have to take your security measures into account. And I don't know, again, if we can't get any funds allocated through the government, can we get funds allocated on the private sector? Like, can we create a fund that then allows armed professionals like myself to get paid for going to do these things? Because again, we have livelihoods. It's like, I could do it for free, but then if I do it for free and I have to give them 7 hours of my day during the school, when do I actually go and work and actually make money for a living? Because you're nowhere in the country where a minimum job can afford you a 2-bedroom apartment. We have all these issues here, and they're not being trusted, and they're not being taken serious by the people in charge. And again, I don't care how much you love the current administration. I don't care what you think they're going to do. Have you heard them propose anything that's going to solve this issue? And if we're making America great, I haven't heard a single solution that's going to make America great in terms of stopping the kids from dying. I haven't. They're too beholden to the higher ups in this gun industry where they're pro-gun and they just want 18-year-olds to be able to carry because the Second Amendment says so. And while that's cool and all, if you want to stand on that hill and die, sure, but like, how do you stop a school shooting from happening? How do you stop that kid from going? And in this case, the person is, they're in their 20s, they're 23. How do you stop that person? 18-year-old can carry, sure. Your state is permitless carry, sure. We got rid of permits. How do we stop this tragedy? Like, tell me that, NRA. Tell me that any other gun lobbyist organization. How do we stop this? Oh, it's just pure acts of evil. It's mental health illness. Sure. What are you doing to help us as armed security professionals get into these schools to actually be able to do it? Where are you creating a bigger budget? If we're doing the big beautiful bill and we have these giant tax cuts, are those tax cuts going to be funded, or is any money, if we're doing tariffs, right? We're doing tariffs for investment. If we're going to do all this money and get all these billions, is any part of that money going to be invested inside of schools to be able to prevent this from happening? Probably not. If the Department of Education, if there's no federal oversight of education, it's all left on the state level. Do the states get access to the tariffs, or is that just federal? Like, we have to think practical. This isn't a reality show. This isn't TV. This is real life. These are real things happening. People's lives are really affected by these kind of deals. I know this might be a tangent at this point, but I genuinely want to open up the debate. I don't care if you're anti-gun. I don't care if you're pro-gun. What are the practical solutions? Again, I've already gone through the different rabbit holes. Like, we shut all the gun stores down. We still have millions of guns in people's hands. Does the good guy with the gun stop the bad guy with the gun if the good guy isn't trained? If you just have a gun, but you haven't, like I said, as an instructor, how many people tell me they have a gun, but they haven't shot it in forever, or they carry their gun every day, or maybe they get to the range once a month? Well, I appreciate people getting to the range, period. Once a month ain't enough. Once a month for what, 30 minutes? 50 rounds? For whatever it is? Were you actively really training on how to be precise? Or were you just standing on an indoor range just shooting at a paper target? There are so many aspects, there's so many levels to owning a gun, training with a gun, and being a good operator with a gun that people take for granted. We're not thinking practical. It's too political. It's too polarized politically. Like, just hard. Like, the situations like this have made me want to quit the gun industry. But I recognize now even more than ever that I am a growing voice in the space. I think I have a more practical approach to actually carrying guns and doing this profession that the major people aren't willing to actually go on because they are on their extreme ends and polarization. I just want it to stop. I'm down. I am down for whatever, as long as we can stop it from being abused later on, and it actually makes practical sense to stopping this event from happening altogether. How do we stop the event altogether? If we can stop the amount of injuries, like in this case, the only grateful thing, which is still a tragedy, is that only 2 children died. 17 others are injured though, so their innocence is gone. It's gone forever. Like, they will never be the same. If you've never seen somebody get shot, if you've never been there, seen that, felt that, you don't know. Like, their innocence is gone forever now. They will forever remember this situation. How do you stop that? Like, how do you prevent that from ever happening again? How do you embolden them to also want to be a protector and savior one day when they grow? Like, kids want to be police officers, so some kids have that natural inclination to want to serve and protect. Kids determine they want to go to the military early. They want to serve and protect. How do you show them a good way to do that early on? Can we create more avenues besides just the police and just the military that is our servers and protectors? There are many civilians that want to do it, but we have to enable them through smart ways. Again, I'm all for psyche evals. I told you I took one. 560 questions. Put me through it again if you want me to go out of school. I'll do it. Give it to me right now. I'll take the test. Determine if I'm eligible to do it. I have all the credentials, all the backgrounds. I have all the training, over 10,000 rounds. Allow me to do my job. Allow me to do what I feel like God basically created me to do, which is to serve and protect those who can't do it themselves. I haven't signed up for a police agency because, again, police agencies, you have to be dispatched. You're dealing with so many other things. Pulse really let me know that I am here for the individual business that the police can't get to until their 7-minute travel time of responding. Until somebody calls 911, tells that operator what's going on, and that operator dispatches an officer there. I am there for that in-between time. That 7 to 10 crucial minutes that life is being taken, a tragedy is happening. That's what I'm here for. I'm not here for the bureaucracy of a police agency. I'm not here for the Blue Lives Matter type deal. I'm here to stop life from being taken in private businesses where the police can't get there right away. That's what I'm here for. That's what I know 1,000 other people that are there for. That's what I know thousands of other people are there for across the country. But there isn't a political side that has pushed and proposed a budget. And if there is up that's proposed a budget, who are the people that turn that budget down? Those are the people we should get out of office. Those are the people that you shouldn't vote for. I don't care what political party they're a part of. If they have voted to not allow practical solutions to this, and it's some extreme solution of take all the guns away or make it extremely harder, can you guarantee that will stop somebody from killing kids in a school in any way, shape, or form? Whether it's a gun, knife, car, whatever. Can you guarantee that we'll stop it, or will we have to do that and then something else and then something else and then something else? The most practical way I can see to end this video is for schools increase their budget to allow them to have plainclothes protective people there, that their sole job is to just watch around, and if anybody tries to come into the school to commit an act, they're there to stop that act. They're in the front offices, they're monitoring the entryways into the school, they're walking around in between classes of people that are just out and about. You can do it in plain clothes. You don't have to be, I don't have to be tacked out, I don't have to be in a vest, I don't have to look like a SWAT officer to do that. I can do that in a polo and jeans. I can do it in this shirt right here. However I have to dress, I can do the job and blend into the environment and make it comfortable for the parents, make it comfortable for the kids, make it comfortable for the staff. I can do it. I've done it. I've worked so many of those jobs at this point. I've done it. People admire it. People understand it. People want that. People want to be protected. The amount of people that come up to me and they just say thank you for the service, even though I'm not a cop, I understand what they're saying. I don't pretend to be a cop. They say thank you for the service because they understand what I'm there to do. And I honor that by going to the range, training, and being the best at my job that I can be, with always understanding there's room for improvement. I honor their thanks by being a professional, by taking this job seriously, by actually wanting to go out and do those things. These are my inner thoughts with this situation going on. It's such a tragedy, man. Like, just, it hurts because it feels like on a small level, as a small business owner that owns a security agency, it can't always convince the client that you need to take my recommendations. You need to do the things that I'm doing. Screw your bottom line. Allocate this much in your budget to be able to do this. Increase your security system. Get an armed presence on there. It doesn't need to be tacked out. It doesn't need to be SWAT. We have plainclothes guys all the time. Do it. Invest in your security. In terms of the school, they had the doors boarded up. Like, dude couldn't get into the school, but he shot through the window. He took whatever he can get first is what they did. And again, what people have to understand is when somebody is committed to violence like that, they are committed full through and through. And the only thing that will stop them besides them is somebody else that it will be as committed to committing that same act of violence against them. While I don't like violence, period, I wish we could all just stop killing. Like, I wish all humans would just determine that killing stops, but killing is a part of life. Animals kill each other over territory. Humans do the exact same thing. So killing is a part of life. Even if we take guns away, it won't stop the innate mindset to go and kill an individual. Therefore, how do we stop an individual that is willing to take life at with such commitment? It takes somebody else that's willing to do it against them. And I don't expect everybody to understand that statement. If you've never been there, if that's not your mindset, I don't expect you to understand it. It's just not who you're built for, and that's okay. It's not for you. You're not in the military. You're not operating at a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 unit. It's not your mindset, and that's okay. It's not for everybody, but there are people out there that are willing to do it. I think we should allow them to. I think we should hold our politicians to such a high standard where this tariff money that we're getting, let's take a 1% of it and allocate a trust fund to schools and disperse this money out to all the different schools in every state to be able to have more RSO officers. If you want official police, cool. Put more official police there. I personally don't want to join police agencies. I don't want to deal with the bureaucracy of police agencies. I don't want to deal with the misconduct of another police officer doing something wrong. I'm there to protect the life of individuals that can't protect their own life in that moment. That's why I carry a gun professionally. That's why I'm in armed security. Allow me to do my job, politicians. Stop with the polarization. Stop with the political talking points. Stop ignoring the reality because you have this old ideology of the Second Amendment. There's room for upgrade. There is room for nuance. We have to meet in the middle. Like, if we don't meet in the middle, this will not stop. And it won't stop because there will be somebody else that has the same mindset. Not if, but when. Somebody else will copycat the same mindset, and this will happen again in some year, some month, some day. It will happen again. What are we going to do practically to stop it? That is the question I pose to all of you politicians out there that back this administration. Push him in that White House to allocate money. Have him work some magical deal. If he's an extreme deal maker, have him work a deal with somebody on a bipartisan level to increase the budget for schools to be able to increase their security, whether it is RSO officers, armed officers in plain clothes, security cameras. I don't care what it is. You guys in the Republican Party, since you have all this power up there, do this. Instead of gerrymandering districts, figure out how to increase the budget over here. If you want to keep all your seats and you want to keep the seats and keep control of this and that, this is a good way to control seats. This is a good policy to pass. Do that instead of playing a political game and playing reality TV show with the country. Again, I don't care politically where you stand. I'm just pissed off about the situation because I know nothing's going to change, man. Like, they're not going to change anything up there. They're going to next week, next Tuesday, it's going to be some other politically extreme situation with National Guard taking over this or taking over that for 30 days here. Man, increase the budget to allow professionals to be able to do their job. Like, allow us to be able to go and do our job. Give us the SOPs, the ROEs that we need to go and do our job successfully. And if we break protocol, prosecute us. But if we do the job successfully and we stop this from happening, if we don't have another one in a year, if we did this on a year experiment and we didn't have another one, we'd see it works. If we have few, we can look at them. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Let's find a new solution. But what we're currently doing ain't working. It's not working. Pushing the talking points that gun industries are pushing, it ain't working. The talking points that Democrats are pushing, it's not working. It's not connected to what people want. There are a lot of Democrats that own guns. I've taught them. I've taught a lot of people that are not Republicans. They're not, these extreme two-way people, but they believe in having a firearm for self-defense. They do. They don't need to have 10 guns. They're fine with just having a pistol. They don't want nothing to do with an AR, but a simple pistol to protect their house, they're about. All the jobs I've worked on where I am there for workplace violence, and most of the time they don't know what I'm there for. They just know there is somebody new in this building they've never seen before. They appreciate it if they can figure it out and connect dots. They appreciate the fact that I'm there. People want this. It is not as politically confusing as they would like it to be. It's a simple solution, but they're too politically stuck in their own parties with party over country that they won't allow this to happen. So I'll finish my rant there. Politicians, do your goddamn job and allow us to do something.